Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here we are recording this evening. Joy is hot and spicy, it's fair to say. We've had
There's a lot going on in the world.
Yeah, we've had a very interesting conversation before we hit record and play. So I think at this juncture, I'll hand it straight over to Joy.
So I found this out. This was an article that was published yesterday. Apparently, Paul McCartney joined Chad Smith and Andrew Watt for a surprise little get-together in Long Island yesterday, New York. Mm-hmm. So and Tim's talking about this. Paul McCartney's lived in Long Island for many years. He chooses to live in America, even though he is of British descent. And so this is in the Hamptons, which is where he lives. I don't know if that qualifies. Is the Hamptons and Long Island the same thing? I don't know. Don't come for me, New York. I'm reading this. Anyway, so, and for those who don't know, Chad Smith is the drummer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then Andrew Watt is a producer. Mm-hmm. So basically what they're saying is he came in, nobody was warned. He just kind of came in at like a pub or a bar or whatever you want to call it. And he's saying, I saw her standing there, and then a Neil Young version of Rockin' in the Free World, which I don't know if there's another version, but that's what my words say. Is there another version, Tim, of Rockin' in the Free World?
No, it's a Neil Young song.
Okay. Anyway, so, and then they said Charlotte Lawrence, which I'm not familiar with, which is apparently Watt's girlfriend, did backup vocals. And then they did a few like social media, like very PR type stuff. And what it's saying is this guy, this Watt's guy is in talks to be working on the new Paul McCartney album. And this is the first time since lockdown. This is the first since lockdown album that McCartney has come out with. And so, yeah, they've been working on it for a while. They said that he's been working with people behind the scenes, and there's some new material coming out. They threw out names. Now, this is all suspect, but they threw out names like Elton John, Ozzy Osbourne, Iggy Pop, Pearl Jam, and so on and so forth. That could be possibly in this album. So there you go, guys.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I actually did see a video of this.
Was it good? I didn't watch it.
Yeah, and it has G.E. Smith on guitar, who used to be the Saturday Night Live band leader and famously played with Hall & Oates. And it's as much as you'd expect. This is like a supergroup fun band that they put together. The Hamptons is a very well-to-do area of New York. That's typically where your money lives, is in the Hamptons.
I saw someone buying a sandwich there on TikTok the other day, Tim. It was a wrap. Do you want to know how much it costs? One guess. Just like a deli sandwich.
$22.
26, you were close.
There we go.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
So, like Paul McCartney, he has I think he has a couple of properties in England, but his wife is American, so he, of course, has a place here, and I think she's a New Yorker, so it makes sense that he would live in the Hamptons or have a property in the Hamptons. But, you know, Paul being Paul, he's doing something with Andrew Watt, and he's, I just thought I'd go drop down and see my mate Andrew and see what he's up to. And that's what it is. And he walks on stage, and they do Saw Her Standing There, and he sort of sings it a bit with him, and they do Rockin' in the Free World, and he sings it a bit with him. And it's like every sort of unplanned jam session, technically probably not great, but it has a lot of energy, and it's just kind of cool. He's an 82-year-old guy who just wants to get up on stage and jam with his mates.
I would cry, Tim, if I were in the audience. Like, I would actually cry if I wasn't expecting to be there and he just came out. Like, that's how this would, like, you know what I mean, Tim? Like, change people's lives. Like, there would be tears. Now, it's interesting you said that, though. It does for our UK people and people outside of the United States. It says he is back on the road as of October 1st. He's going to be touring in South America, and he's also returning to the UK for 2 shows in London Zone 2 on December 18th and 19th. And I guarantee you those tickets are outrageous.
Absolutely. But I mean, it has to be applauded. Paul McCartney, 82, he's just touring and touring and touring. It's fantastic.
I know, right? And this is, I mean, it just says, for all I can tell right now, it says he's going to be touring in South America and he's going to be touring in the UK, but who knows? Knowing him, it'll be extended to everywhere else. So that is my deal. And go give it a Google. You get off of here and watch him play because it's cute. It really is cute.
Absolutely. Well, I have one music news item for you. So it's also Beatles-centric. I thought this would be interesting. So Pete Best, who was the original drummer in the Beatles, he was there all the way up to Hamburg, really. And then when they returned from Hamburg, George Martin really objected to his playing and said he wasn't any good. Then they got Ringo Starr involved in the band. But back in the early days of the Beatles, before they were the Beatles, when they were the Quarrymen, they would play gigs in and around Liverpool. Now, there was a place called the Casbah Coffee Club And it was
Okay.
the seller of this venue, and this lady opened this place up, and that was the first concert ever played there was by the Quarrymen, and it sort of has a kind of Beatles folklore about it.
Yeah.
And Pete Best has been involved with its renovation, so they bought this property, and they're actually turning it into an Airbnb.
Okay. I mean, would you want to stay there? I don't know.
Well, the interesting thing is that it's the rooms have different names. So
Oh,
you have a Lennon suite, a
of
McCartney
course.
suite, a Harrison suite, but unsurprisingly, there's no Ringo Starr suite in this
I'm not
place.
saying they're out of spite now. What? No.
Yeah.
I'm kicking. I'm not saying they're out of spite now, Tim. I'm sad.
Well, that's the headline. It says Pete Best turns early Beatles venue into Airbnb. Rooms named after all the members except Ringo.
Poor Ringo.
Well,
And
I
you know, the
mean,
sad part is two of them are dead. They would have never known that you can give a room after them, but he's still alive, so he's gonna know.
well, the thing is, it's Pete Best who owns this venue, and Pete Best is the one who's going to be over this Airbnb, and he was kicked out of the Beatles, so he doesn't really want to
I
name one of the
know,
rooms
but
after his successor.
still, I know the drummer thing. I get what you're saying, Tim, but like they could have just gave him a little shout out and left out one of the others. They're dead. They would have never known.
Well, there
Do
we
I
are.
make a good point though, Tim? Like, Bill's purposely mean, but it's also like, do you really want to put your successor up there? All right. Well, Tim, I meant to tell you, I still had one personal story. I didn't get to it, but I have one personal story. I'll make it quick, and then Tim can get into his little. It's Tim's topics. I don't know why I said little. I don't know if it's little, guys. I have no indication that it's little. But anyway, with that being said, I meant to lead into this, and I kind of forgot because we was talking about music news. I am doing on the threads, Tim's favorite social media, a little challenge with one of our listeners. I do not know her official name, but her on the TikToks on the thread, she goes by Coco. Her name Coco Cooks too. I don't know much about her, but she does listen to our podcast, and she reached out to me 3 or 4 months ago. I was dedicated on the idea I was going to do this song a day thing. That lasted for about 10 days because Joy has the attention span of a goldfish. So, and Tim can testify that is accurate. No matter who I am, I do have the attention span of a goldfish. So, um, she asked me if I'd pick it back up and I could do it with her. So we've been doing it together. And I have an idea, Tim, to keep me on track. What I'm going to do is there's, I don't know, 30 some days on this little list. At the
Hmm.
end, I'm going to make you pick like 15 songs, 15 random numbers between 1 and 36. And I'm going to I'm going to do an episode where I talk about why I picked those songs and what the challenge was.
Okay.
And say, because the thing about it is, it's not just like music you like. It could be music you hate. It could be like one of the ones was, what was the song that reflected a decision you've made or something your sibling loved? So you would learn a lot about a person. It's not just like, everybody who listens to this podcast knows Joy loves Michael Jackson. Right. That's
Hmm.
pretty common knowledge, but this kind of breaks it out of that. So my goal is to actually focus, hang out with our listener Coco, and look at what she puts. And then at the end, once I hit the end, we'll do an episode. Tim, you'll pick 15 random numbers between 1 and 36, and I'll go through them from the challenge. And that is how I'll hold myself accountable to actually finish this challenge this time.
Well, there we are. Well, I think it's good to be accountable to a challenge because, I'm in the middle of a 3 year long challenge. So, Joy, you can do it. You can do it.
He's at 3 years, and I'm like, I made it 10 days. Anyway, all right, Tim, on with the show.
Okay, so this week's episode is sort of centered around a trip that I made recently. So I was talking to a co-worker about the fabled ditching of an aircraft in the Hudson River in New York, which was called the Miracle on the Hudson. And, everyone has now heard of Sully Sullenberger, who was
Yep.
the pilot of that aircraft. It was a Airbus A320, US Airways Flight 1549, and it famously took off from LaGuardia, had a multiple bird strike in both engines, and then he had to ditch it in the Hudson River.
He was
And
like the first person to ever land one properly in water and so on and so forth.
well, there was an Ethiopian Airlines 747 that landed in the ocean. There's been a few other things like that.
So
but
much like an American to think we're the only one who did it. No, I'm kidding, guys. But it was like, you know what I mean? It was a big deal.
yeah, and the fact is that everybody survived. There was not really any serious injuries. Everyone more or less walked away from it. It was a
A
miracle.
wonderful story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was the person at work I was having a discussion with. We both agreed that it was a fantastic thing. But there is one school of thought that says, well, he was just doing his job and he was trained, and that's what you do when you're trained. And then of course everyone else says he's a hero. And we was having this discussion
What
about
if it's
it.
just a little bit of both?
Yeah, well, I think he did a fabulous job. So well, after I finished the conversation, because I like to look things up on Wikipedia, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and I
Mhm.
learned that the aircraft, the Airbus A320, is in a museum in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
So
Been there many times.
Hannah and I had a free weekend. I didn't have any gigs, so we drove down to Charlotte and we went to the Sullenberger Aviation Museum.
Oh, I didn't even know that existed until now. Oh,
Well, it sort of existed for a number of years, but they recently just reopened it and
uh,
refurbished it, and it opened.
maybe
I
post
think
COVID or something.
no, it was. I think I saw some pictures before the refurb, but it wasn't as fancy as when I saw it. And the
Well,
centerpiece exhibit is that aircraft and artifacts and a film and timelines and stuff. And that's your centerpiece example that they show. And then of course there's other aircraft and the helicopters and stuff. And it's a pretty interesting museum. It's certainly worth it if you're in Charlotte. I'd recommend it.
got it.
So I like to make targeted playlists when we travel, and I made a because it's a 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours back, and I'm mixing some podcasts and stuff. So I pulled out a lot of songs which are aviation themed.
I figured that's where this is going. Tim is so specific, and Joy is the opposite of specific. You guys will get like Joy clicked on the thing, and this is what she listened to today. Tim like crafts his music, and I'm like, that sounds all right. But anyway, okay. So aviation, how serious are we taking the aviation piece? Are some of these on the nose or are some of them skeptical?
Well, I think the songs that I have here, and this is quite a large, long list, I
Hmm.
think these are pretty well targeted. I think using and nearly all of them are by the name of the song.
You got it by the nose. I feel like that's like a pun on the nose of a plane. Anyway, continue, everybody.
Okay, so I've got these songs here,
Okay.
fresh from the playlist that I use when I travel to Charlotte and back. And of course, I had Business Wars, which was Boeing versus Airbus, but I won't include that because I put those little podcasts in just to
We'll
fill
be
the
here
time.
all week.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
so let's start at the beginning. You couldn't have this episode without this. This, of
Okay.
course, is the Steve Miller Band, and this is Jet Airliner.
So it's so funny. I knew as soon as this came up that this might be coming. And the reason it was on my mind is because just recently I was writing Tim and I was telling him that for some reason every song I listened to on my playlist was a clapping song the other day, which if you've listened to the clapping song episode in relation to his wife Hannah, who likes clapping songs, she loves the Steve Miller Band. And they have a lot of clapping songs and they were talked about on the episode.
Yeah, and I don't think this song has got clapping in
I
it.
don't think
But
so.
one interesting thing I never knew,
Mhm.
he references the Boeing aircraft, the 707, in this song. And
Where
when we
at?
was listening to this podcast, Boeing versus Airbus Business Wars, I found out that the Boeing 707 was the world's first jet aircraft.
Well, where does he say it? I'm leaving on jet plane.
It goes over by the 707. It's one of the lyrics. And I was like, aha, Steve Miller, you
How
know
did
about the age of jet aviation. Look at you.
I mean, I would have never noticed that, but now I'll never hear it. Every time I listen to the episode, the song, I'll just be like singing along. I'm like, oh, there he said it. I can't listen to Steve Miller without clapping, and now we'll add the 707. But it's just funny because for some reason, when I think of the clapping episode, I remember me and you having a very stark discussion about Hannah's love of Steve Miller Band.
Absolutely. She still loves the Steve Miller Band to this day. I took her to
Good
see the
choice.
Steve Miller Band at the Albert Hall in 2010, 2009, 2010, something like that. And she said it was absolutely fantastic. And it was good. We had a great time.
And now you know why they're still together 14 years later.
There we are.
All right, what's the next song?
Okay, so this takes a similar jet theme, but spins it into the
Is
artist
that supposed
rather
to be
than
like
the
a
song.
play on like the wheel, the spinny fan? Where are they? On a plane.
What the engines?
Propellers.
Propellers.
It should not have taken me so long. I could see the propeller because you said it spins it. I thought you were trying to make a pun, and then I failed to realize what. Continue, Tim. Let's
It's
just move
fa-
along from that.
It's fair to say commercial aviation hasn't had propellers for a long time. You used to have those little turboprops
You're
that would
right.
take you.
It's not like when you get on the airplane at Charlotte. You see, okay, guys, just move along. I'm just gonna save myself from all this embarrassment. What's the song?
Okay, so this is by the band Jet, and this is the song "Are You Gonna Be My Girl?"
Oh, Jet was a favorite of mine, and this album was a favorite of mine. I've listened to this like probably 1,000 times, and I have that graphic. Do you own this album, Tim? Or have you seen the one with the white and the black, kind of cartoonish on the front?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I've got at this point about 2,000 CDs. I can't remember what I've got. But yes, I think I have a thrifted copy of this.
So this album stands out to me because it's one of my first kind of albums that I really loved and listened to a lot. And it has like almost kind of like a Beatles-esque kind of like long shaggy hair dudes. And there's like flowers and it's white and it's got like black graphics on it. If you Google it, I'm sure it'll come right up. But that is one of my, and this is I want to say it was a self-titled album, but don't quote me guys. I don't remember the name. But Are You Gonna Be My Girl? I mean, they were really 3-hit wonders and this was one of them.
Yeah, I think the album's name is Get Born.
That makes sense. That's why I said don't quote me. I couldn't remember. But I love that album. And I love Jet the band. It's kind of sad they died out. I don't know whatever happened to them.
No, I don't know. We actually used to cover this song in Rough Justice. When Rough Justice got back together in 2005, 2006, whenever that was, that was one of the songs that we used to do because originally there was a band called Punch Monkey that Hog joined, and then various members left, and I joined, and it became Rough Justice again. But that was part of the original Punch Monkey set.
Huh. I mean, it's a good song. It's got like a cool kind of, they had like really good guitar riffs. They were kind of playing on that 70s, 60s vibe for sure. I mean, I don't want to sound, because I don't think these two bands sound similar, but I think the aesthetic or the vibe they were going for was almost similar to like The Darkness in a way.
Of a fashion. I mean, the
Not
Darkness,
the music style. I mean, like their aesthetic when you look at them.
yeah, the Darkness was certainly more glam, and of course
That's true.
the Darkness is still out there getting it done. I follow Justin Hawkins on all the various social media platforms, and I also listen to his podcast, which is very entertaining.
We are the Darkness lovers of this podcast. I realized, Tim. That's why I said don't come for me, internet, by saying that. But I think they were going for some similar kind of aesthetic with the way they looked when you watched their music videos. But I just don't know what happened to them.
No idea.
Maybe they made enough money and said, bye. I don't know.
Who can honestly say?
And if anybody's wondering, Tim's currently wearing a Knight Rider shirt. I just realized that's what's on his shirt.
Yeah, and I can tell you it's a one of these like illegal type, got it from a dodgy place online. This T-shirt is the exact image that was on the Topps bubblegum packets.
Huh. Well, if anybody, I wonder, I bet if you had that Topps bubblegum packet, it's worth some money now.
I've got one in there.
Have you looked to see if it's worth some money?
I mean, it's never been opened and it has 1980s bubblegum in it. So
You got to give it a goog, though, Tim.
it's probably not worth it. It's probably worth like $10 or something.
Okay, well, I thought maybe there was somebody out there like Tim who might spend more on it. All right, what's next?
All right, so this one is by Randy Crawford, and this is a song, One Day I'll Fly Away.
This song stands out to me because it's a play on, oh, what is it? There's like an old, I mean, she's a jazz and R&B singer, of course. For those who don't know, her real name is Veronica. She goes by Randy, but it's a play on an old hymn.
Okay.
And so I've heard this song a lot. It's a play on an old hymn that you hear in churches a lot in the South. And I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong. I think she's American. Don't come for me, internet. I don't know for sure if Crawford's American, but I want to say she is.
Okay.
Tim's like, I don't know the answer, but we'll go with it.
Now, of course, this song was famously covered in the film Moulin Rouge. Moulin Rouge is a film I got dragged to many years ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is a musical." So I have seen it, and I actually do have the soundtrack of it on my computer, and I've heard that version. But Randy Crawford's version is so much better. When we was listening to it in the car, Hannah was listening to it, and she wasn't familiar with this being the original. She said, "Oh, this is the song from Moulin Rouge." I was like, "No, this is Randy Crawford's song."
And you're like, darn you. But yeah, Nicole Kidman portraying whatever her name is, like what, 2000? When did that movie come out, Tim? 2000, 2002, 1999.
That kind of idea.
And then I think Girls Out Loud did a version.
Very
Or
possibly.
one of the singers did a version. It wasn't great, Tim. for the for like her lead single though. When she broke out of that Girls Out Loud band in England, she did a version of this song too. But I know this because I know it samples some older music, and from what I understand is it's a play on a hymn from back in the day. And so that's the only reason this sticks out to me. I learned that at some point in time in my life. You know what I mean, Tim? But it's a good song, and it is talking about flying. And one day Tim will fly away. So, you know.
Exactly. As I said, this playlist is incredibly well targeted.
Fair enough. All right, what's next?
Okay. So this one is Frank Sinatra and Count Basie, and this is Fly Me to the Moon.
I mean, you can't really actually fly to the moon, though, Tim.
Well, you can because people have flown to the moon.
But it's not really flying. It's more of a rocket. See, when I think of, okay, so what's the difference between like an actual rocket ship that can go through the stratosphere versus, because I mean, it's like propelled through. It's not the same as a plane. Are you still flying at that point?
That's true. Maybe flying is within the atmosphere, and when you escape the atmosphere, I mean, you're still traveling through space, but
space travel. That's when it becomes space travel, maybe. I don't know. Because when I think of like flying an airplane, I think of straight lines, California to England or something, right, Tim? And but when I think of like space travel, like straight up, you gotta hit certain G forces, you gotta go through the actual atmosphere, you know,
sure,
to get there. So are they the same thing? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think flying, maybe you need to be within the Earth's atmosphere. When you exit the Earth's atmosphere and you're in deep space with a vacuum of space, maybe you're gliding, or who honestly knows. But anyhow, Frank never question the chairman of the board. He's saying fly me to the moon. So if Frank wants to fly to the moon, let him fly to the moon.
This episode is going to be off the Richter scales, but you're correct in the sense that I don't know. I've heard that song 1,000 times, and not once has that thought about flying to the moon come up. But of course, now I have to challenge Tim on it.
I'm going to pull the lyrics out because it's probably very metaphorical. Where are
I'm
we?
sure.
Where
I don't think he literally thought he was flying to the moon, Tim.
Moon lyrics. Let's have a look. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, and let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me.
Yeah, I think it's metaphorical there, Tim.
There we
are. I don't
yeah.
think he was on Jupiter and Mars.
But he wants to see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. I mean,
do they even have spring? Because doesn't Mars and Jupiter have like 37,000 days to their year or something?
Well, Mars has Martian sols rather than years. So like their sol is a lot longer, or I think, than a year. So people who work on these Mars rovers end up working in Martian sols, not in Earth years. So they work, I think they work a 27-hour day or something. They write their
contract into the Martian sols?
Yeah, if you work,
that's crazy.
If you work for JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory for NASA, and you're one of the crews that service the rovers, of course, you work on the Martian sol, not on the Earth day. So your working day, I think, is like, I could have this wrong, but it's like 14 hours or 15 hours. And then, you have your sleep period, then you come back. So, of course, sometimes you're working at night, sometimes you're working in the day because you're working on the Martian schedule.
There we go, guys. I mean, I guess I knew that, but I mean, maybe I did know. I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about it. But it makes sense because I do know that time, which is all perception, everyone, is different. Like in different planets. You go to a different planet, their time, their form of a day in a year is a completely different concept. So it makes sense. And I've said this on the podcast, and I will say this over and over again. This has nothing to do with Frank Sinatra, but I do like the song, though. The concept of light years is the most mind-boggling thing to me. And I cannot fathom the idea that if I'm looking at something that's 7 light years away, it happened 7 years ago. I can't. I just can't.
It's a whole thing. I will tell you my work of somebody joined us recently who worked on the Mars rover. And that person...
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And I was very excited to speak to that person about the Mars rover. And I said, was your work schedule Martian Sols? Because I'd heard that. And the person in question said, no, I only worked on it until they landed that thing. And then they ended my contract. So I was very disappointed.
They were like, no, I hate that thing. Once it landed, I was done.
Yeah, but the
Now-
contract ended when it was landed, apparently.
I mean, I guess that makes logical sense, right? Once you've ended the mission, it's done.
There
Sad
we
but
are.
true. Join the union. I don't know. I'm not even a union member. That was a joke. All right, what's the next song, Tim?
Okay, so this is a song you've probably never heard, but
Okay.
I have to include it because, because I have to.
All
This
right.
is coming from the album Looking for Freedom. This is David Hasselhoff and the song Flying on the Wings of Tenderness.
I haven't, but I mean, I know who David Hasselhoff is. I don't know if that counts. So what does this song entail, Tim? Or what
It
about this
is-
song stands out?
It is 80s German cheese pop. Of
course it
its
is.
absolute finest. And in fact, I know I just pulled the lyrics up for Fly Me to the Moon, but let me just pull the lyrics this
He's
up.
googling the other one, guys. Give him a moment.
Yeah, let me just, because I mean,
Oh my God, Tim. So while you're doing this, I have to tell you the funniest story about Give It a Goo. I was talking to this doctor that I hired. She was wonderful, and we went through the interview process. At that point, I already determined I was going to hire her. We were having more like real discussion, like about life, and she was asking me questions about me, and she was asking me a question about some legal statutes in Alabama. I don't need to get into the details, but there's some stuff going on there that's very interesting, almost like a soap opera. But what we were talking about, and I said, "Well, give it a goog." In the interview, like after we were talking, I said, "Give it a goog," and then light bells started going off, and I was like, "You probably have no idea what that means." And I explained. I said, "Give it a goog." I said, "I watched a podcast, and that's what they say when they say you're going to Google something." She thought that was the funniest thing ever. But I'm talking to this random doctor in Tennessee, and out of nowhere, I said, "Well, you should give it a goog," and I'm like, "Oh my God, Joy." Once I explained it to her, she was super nice. We had already kind of like become more friendly at that point. It's past the formal interview, if that makes sense, Tim. But it still was awkward. And I was like, she's probably like, where did that come from? Anyway, what's the answer, Tim?
Okay, so Flying on the Wings of Tenderness. Okay, this is your chorus. We're flying on the wings of tenderness, riding the rivers of gentleness. In the garden of love we'll flow and we'll watch it grow together. We'll build a castle out of honesty, fill every room with harmony, seeing the world through each other's eyes. We live our lives together. This is the worst German cheese pop you could ever imagine. However, it's fabulous.
That's a lot. I'm just going to say that's a lot, Tim. A lot of words, a lot of things happen.
And I recommend all of our listeners check this out and listen to it once and then say to yourself, I will never listen to this rubbish ever again.
Or if you love it, listen to it again, and Tim won't judge you because he listens to it regularly.
I won't say regularly, but I had heard it before.
Once every so often, he listens to it. You guys know this is the every third song. This is what Tim listens to. Okay, what's next? That was a joke.
Okay, so this is a song that's been played by a number of people over the years, but
Okay.
I'm going with this one. This is the version by the Blues Brothers from their album Briefcase Full of Blues, and this is the song Flip Flop Fly.
Well, Joy is a blues brother, a lover, aficionado. What do you call it, Tim? I just love all
Aficionado.
things. I love all things Blues Brothers. I love the movie. I love Soul Man. I love Rubber Biscuit. Everything the Blues Brothers does. And I mean, this song's about a rocking chair and flip flop and flying. I don't care if I die. It's very Blues Brothers, really.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it was included. Now, this is kind of the 70s for them. So it is a little bit of a change from their like Motown thing they were really in. Like, you know what I mean, Ted? Like, this is more 70s music, I would think. But they're more known for their soul. I don't know that I associate this song with soul, but I do like this song. And I know at some point in time it says something about a Mississippi bullfrog in it.
Yeah, this is a song that I've played a number of times over the years. I used to be in a band called The Guilty Party, where we used to go out and do functions and weddings and things like that. And this was a song that was from the Guilty Party set. And I think this
That
is
makes
originally
sense.
a Louis Jordan song. I mean, this is an old
have no idea,
old
honestly.
song, but I picked the Blues Brothers one because one, I know you like the Blues Brothers, and secondly, I thought, well, let's just pick a different artist rather than the original.
Makes sense. Yeah, I love the Blues Brothers, so I'm glad you did this because I wouldn't be able to tell you who sang this originally. I have no idea. But this is the same album that like they had their major singles like Soul Man and Rubber Biscuit, all that stuff. We're all on this album. So
Sure.
good choice, Tim. Good choice.
Well, thank
Take
you.
it. Don't know what it has to do with flying, but anyway.
Well, flip,
I
flop,
mean-
and fly.
No, I know what, but I mean, I meant like I know why you picked it because it says fly, but like, is the song really about flying? Debatable.
There we go.
Though I don't know what the song is about either if it's not. All right, moving along.
Okay. Well, this one is by the band 10cc. Are you familiar with the band 10cc, Godley and Cream?
You've talked about them on the podcast, but outside of that, no, Tim.
Okay. Well, this is a song by them called I'm Mandy Fly Me. But I mean, if it's not a. Maybe
I'm
it was,
Andy Fly Me? Is that
I'm
what you said?
Mandy Fly Me.
Who's Mandy?
I don't know, someone who wants to be flown by all accounts.
Oh, so there's no one in 10cc named Mandy?
No.
Oh. I wonder who Mandy is. I hope she's flying high.
I mean, we keep our fingers and toes crossed at this point. But it's interesting to think that they had another song called I'm Not in Love. Is that not a song that you're familiar with?
You talked about it on a previous episode, and I looked into it after that, but I wouldn't say it was an American hit that I'm aware of. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe in some underground something, but not to my knowledge. Are they like a band from the UK, or are they American?
Absolutely. It was Godley and Cream, I believe, were the people who were in 10cc. And they were sort of an artist that I sort of grew up with, I suppose. My mum and dad had a 10cc album.
Yeah.
And it was, you'd hear their music from time to time. It's just interesting, yet another artist that hasn't seemed to made a trip across the Atlantic to any great extent.
Well, Tim, we're breaking barriers on this podcast. We're teaching people what they need to listen to on the opposite ends of the world. It's like whenever I taught Tim about Selena, and we were in the Freak Jams old Zoom that they talked about. If you haven't seen the Ian Hobson episode, go back and listen to that. We're not going to get into the details, but I said Selena, and everybody thought I meant the modern day Selena Gomez, and my mind was just completely blown that no one knew that it's about Selena, the Mexican American from the early 90s. Still, I was like, I just don't get it. I just, and it's weird that you just assume people know what you know. So the best advice is not to assume.
Absolutely. But as we've spoken before, the internet and all these streaming things now has sort of, it's removed these country barriers, because like if I want to sit here and be into Lebanese metal, there you go. I can listen to that all day if I want to. Whereas
Look
previously,
at the K-pop trend.
yeah, or previously if I wanted some kind of niche artist from a foreign country that wasn't played on the radio, you never see on TV, you'd have to know about it for one, and then you'd have to import all their records. It was very complicated. But now someone say, oh, check this out, this is a Dutch something, this, that, the other collaboration with a Russian something, and it's like, there you go, you can just watch it.
You know what's so funny about that? What I think of as like the first example of one of those songs that transcended was the Ozone song, the Dragonstone did Tia, the one for Romania in the early 2000s. You know what I'm talking about? The Maya he, Maya ha. Like, there's no way before the internet I would have ever heard that song from Romania, Tim.
Sure.
Like, I just would have never have. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't popular. It wasn't mainstream. I don't even think it was in Romania. I'm not from Romania, so don't come for me, internet. It just was a niche song that picked up on the internet that like now I can quote and will for the rest of my life. But I think about that's like the first example I could think where that started to kind of transcend and break those barriers.
Yeah, the other thing is like for us, where we had MTV, we had MTV Europe. Now it was all spoken in English, and it played 99.9% English lyric songs.
Yeah.
But as you probably know, a lot of European acts sing in English because it's seen as the international language of music. And of course, then you can export your material, and you can export your music to different
And
countries.
Americans are less likely to speak another language.
Yeah, but I mean, you got the UK market, Australian market, US market. You know, and most of the world speaks English.
Canada.
And we used to get some kind of songs which were European hits but weren't UK hits. And there's one in particular called Baker Man by the band Laid Back. And I think this may have come up on a podcast episode before. But that was another song that like I never knew of this song before. And to this day, I really like it. And when I hear it, I always think of that era of MTV, like in the mid 90s or so, where we got MTV Europe. They was playing these songs, and it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. I haven't seen this before.
I mean, that's a really good example of it. Another one that I always think about is I think about the band Boney M. They kind of transcended, and they had a resurgence because of the internet. And they weren't American. Or what is the name of the band? Rednecks with like a Z that does the Cotton Eye
Yeah,
Joe
yeah,
song.
yeah.
That was everywhere. But I mean, where are they from? They're probably what, Germany? I don't know where they were from, Tim.
Rednecks are Swedish.
Of
Boney
course,
M,
I should have known.
yeah, Boney M were German.
Okay, there we go. But those are some examples of different things that have slowly started to creep over. And like Tim says, now if I want to go listen to, I don't know, Romanian pop music, I just type it in and it's right at my fingertips.
There we are. It's available to everyone. It's a leveling, if you will. But of course, then the other thing is everything's now on the internet, and no musicians are getting paid, and they still need to make money.
They
And
have
then
to chop money, talk
and then the
stuff at
gigs are
us.
$500 a ticket. So I mean, pick your poison with this stuff.
I saw a T-shirt, Tim, that I want to get, and I thought about getting you for Christmas this year, and you may get it. And it was on TikTok, and it says, "My homies hate Ticketmaster" or something like that, or something about. And then it had like something about the prices underneath it, or you know what I mean? All my homies hate Ticketmaster. I thought so badly I wanted to get us those. We can be matching it. Like all my homies hate Ticketmaster. I really want to get it for you for Christmas. So if you get that tip, act surprised.
I will do. Oh, Joy, this is so original.
Where did you get this? All right. I have no idea what song we were even talking about. Move along.
Okay, so this one you have to talk about.
Oh my
this
God,
one.
I'm hitting my
This
poor
is,
camera so much tonight. Continue, Tim.
the band themselves call this song part of the Dirty Dozen. That's how they refer to it. This is
Okay.
from the album Infinity. This is Journey, and this is Wheel in the Sky.
Wheel in the sky keeps on turning. It's one of those songs that, like, I mean, I don't know anybody who's never heard this song. Why is it part of the Dirty Dozen?
Well, the sort of the
I've never heard
greatest,
that term.
the greatest hits of Journey. If you go and see the modern Journey band, which doesn't have Steve Perry singing, it has a different
Yeah.
singer. They have like their 12 hits, which everybody knows, and they refer to it as the Dirty Dozen because they want to go out and play the other material, but they have to play the Dirty Dozen because that's all that US rock radio plays.
Well, I will say this song is pretty high up there. It's not one that I can't. I can hear this song, Tim. There are many Journey songs that I will turn it off instantly if they come on because of American rock radio.
Mm-hmm.
Names that will not be named. But I will say, I like this one okay. It's not one that I hear that often that I'm burnt of it, but I see what you're saying. I mean, I feel like it's kind of hard because I understand their point, but I also am like, people talk about like it's hard because you want to play the hits that people want to hear, but it's like they're also human beings and they can only hear na 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 so many times. That's a really bad version of it. I don't know if that was a guitar sound. I don't know what sound that was, but you get the idea. But do you know what I mean, Tim? Like you can only hear that so many times. And I mean, if you played this, like how many chords are in this song, Tim?
I've never played it. I don't think
Oh,
it's terribly complex, but I mean, it's not like status quo with 3 chords.
fair enough. I was gonna say it's probably not that many chords that they're tired of playing. But Journey's one of those bands that I don't think a lot of people know that the lineup's changed pretty drastically over the years. If you go see Journey now, it's different than what you would have saw back in the day, for sure.
Yeah, original keyboard player, original guitarist. I think
Basses.
that's probably about it. Maybe the bassist, but like Randy Jackson played
I was
bass
gonna say
in
Randy
Journey.
Jackson. That's literally what I was gonna say. Randy Jackson played the bass in Journey for a little while. Which
Yeah,
is so random.
because he is an ace session bass player before he became an American Idol judge or whatever he is.
I don't think he is. I don't know. He's lost a bunch of weight now, Tim, and he plays the piano and does like back and forth really bad banter with some lady on this Name the Song show now.
I have no idea.
I only know, okay, I realized that was a really bad descriptor, but he looks super thin now. That's not to judge him. He just does. Comparatively to his American Idol days, he does. And he plays the piano and they have like a session band and they have like these one of those like name the song shows. And so I struggle with this one because I'm good at name the two type things. Tim and me have talked about we both kind of have a niche for that, but I mean we spend every week. What do, Tim? We listen to music all day and then we spend 1 week a night just discussing it on repeat. So it's not that shocking we'd be good at it. And things we didn't even know 2 years ago, we probably know better now.
Sure.
But so I like to watch some of these shows, but this one is terrible, Tim. One, the banter between Randy Jackson and the lady that's on there is, and Molly and me tried. We sat together. My friend Molly was a guest on the show. We're like, we're going to give it a shot. We want to guess the song. This is fun, right? and their banter was so bad. They have zero chemistry. It was the most boring thing I've ever seen. And then they do that thing where they have like a session band playing and he plays the piano. So
Hmm.
like some of them is like, you know, they give him a few notes on the piano, you have to guess it. Okay, fine. But the session band is just it sounds so different from the original record, the way they're doing it and the way the arrangements are. It would be impossible for most people, the average person who's not played that song to know. Like I don't know how to, do you know what I'm talking about, Tim? Like the arrangement just is so unsimilar to what the original songs are they're trying to put out there that it's really hard. And then you've got two really bad hosts and it's miserable. That's what Randy Jackson's doing right now.
Yeah. Do you know one thing that blows my mind about things like this?
Hmm.
And maybe this is because I'm completely more or less self-taught on guitar. I mean, I had some lessons at the beginning. That someone who's a virtuoso bass player knows how to play keyboards. It's still, I can't play keyboards, and it just hurts my head to
I think he
think
plays
about
like
it.
seven instruments or something,
Yeah.
Tim. He's one of those people. I know we've talked about that, and you're like, of course he does. But to be fair, he might be really good at the keyboard, and he might be good at music, but he's a terrible talk show host on this show. I don't
There we
know
are.
what it is. Have you ever seen two people who are hosting together and they just don't vibe at all, Tim? I mean, like really bad.
Yeah,
That's these
I would
two.
say that about Jimmy Fallon with everybody he's ever interviewed.
You know what makes me mad about Jimmy Fallon? And I will say this, well, full authority, and then we'll go back to your episode. But what makes me mad about Jimmy Fallon is he claims to be a good singer, but he only knows two artists that he sings. Like every time they put him on the spot on his show, he was always singing like the Rolling Stones because he only knows how to sing Beast of Burden, or he's always singing whatever McDonald's. That's what is his name, Tim? With the
Michael
really distinct.
McDonald.
I almost said Pat McDonald. I knew that wasn't right. Pat McDonald. Mike McDonald. He's always singing one of those two songs. Those like obviously the Rolling Stones have a very distinct sound. McDonald has a really not Ronald McDonald. Everybody McDonald has a really distinct sound. So it's not really even him singing so much as it's him being able to mimic their voices. And then they kind of play him up to be like a good singer. Does that make sense? And it drives me
Yeah.
insane because it's constantly played out on his show. And I'm like, that would work if you sang anything else besides Beast of Burden.
Yeah, I
and
think I
anything
think he's
else.
a better sketch comedy and impressionist than he is an interviewer.
I think so too.
I have not
He's more
watched.
SNL.
Yeah, I haven't really watched his show since he's been doing it. I may have maybe seen it once or twice or seen bits of it when there's someone I wanted to see him interview. But like he has no rapport. It's terrible. He's no, you know, when you
He's
when you have
awkward.
yeah, when you think of the legends of late night, you've got Johnny Carson, you've got David Letterman, you've got Conan O'Brien.
Even James Corden did a better
Oh
job.
no, no, shut that down. Shut
But
that
I'm
down.
saying he did a better job than Fallon, I feel like. I know that the Brits want to send it back to America and the Americans want to send it back to England, but that's not related. But would you not say he has better rapport?
To be
I
honest,
think
I
he
don't
does.
know because I've never seen his show because I find him repulsive.
But he can actually sing. I'll give him that. He
Yeah,
actually
I've
sings
heard
quite
him
well.
sing, and yes, I agree.
Yes, he's a much better singer than Jimmy Fallon. But then what's his face is like the good guitarist. There's that one guy. What's his name, Tim? Who's the one that plays the guitar on late night TV hosts? No
I
one.
don't
You've
know.
talked about him on the episode. Okay.
What,
It's going to come to me.
G. Smith? Last Saturday Night Live band?
No, he's like a talk show host, but he's also like either a bassist or a guitarist. He even played once on his episode. All right, we're just gonna move along, Tim. I'll Google it later. But
Okay.
it does exist. They do exist. All right. So moral of the story is that is what Randy Jackson is doing. I forgot what song we were talking. Oh, Journey, Will in the Sky. That's why Randy Jackson came up. Let's
we
move
are.
along.
Okay. All right. So this is in your wheelhouse, as they say, coming from the wheel in the sky. This
A
is from
rotary.
yeah. This is from the Jackson 5. This is from the album Skywriter and the song Skywriter.
Well, very it's kind of funny I said that about Michael Jackson earlier. This is a song though that like you don't see come up too much when people talk about the Jackson 5. At least I don't think so. Like it's
No.
kind of one of their more obscure. I've definitely heard it and I own this album, but I just don't feel like it's one that people know that well from them.
Yeah, it's an album which I'm very familiar with because I remember going into London to the HMV sale. Now, every year, like January sales, HMV in London and also Tower Records, those big, huge record shops that we used to have in central London. They would have like a big January sale. And I remember going up with my mum one year to Tower, or I think it was actually to HMV,
Yeah.
and just look what they had on discount. And they were closing out lots of like records and tapes for very cheap. And they had Skywriter, and I bought it, and it was, a couple of pounds or whatever it was. It was heavily discounted. And I just got it because I like the Jacksons and I like Michael Jackson. And I actually found I really like this album.
I have this album. I don't have very many albums on vinyl, but this is one that I do own on vinyl, so it sticks out to me. And this is very 70s, almost the play on disco, because they did have like a very kind of branch from Motown into disco world. And then after that, Joseph, I feel like Michael kind of ran with the disco, and that's where the Off the Wall album came from. And then he went into his own solo career.
Yeah, I mean, Off the Wall is his disco album.
Mm-hmm.
And then Thriller still has bits of disco in it, but it's sort of more contemporary pop as well.
I loved it though. Off the Wall, if I will say this controversially, and the internet will cover me, but Off the Wall is probably my favorite Michael Jackson album.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I flip-flop between the two. Thriller, of course, you got such the big hits. You've got that big Keystone song, which is Thriller, Beat It, and all those great songs. I Want to Be Starting Something, Lady in My Life, PYT, all great songs. However, I will say that Off the Wall, being the more disco-influenced song, Working Day and Night, or even the title track, Off the Wall, all great music, and it's sort of disco-influenced music.
I think it was a great example of Quincy Jones's ability to make an album from beginning to end. Because this was like kind of one of his first, I don't want to say it was his real first album that was disco, because I really don't know every Quincy Jones album out there, guys. Shocker, I don't know all of them. But I will say for me, this was a good kind of transcend into what he can do. And this was like the first one he produced outside of like that Motown sound. And I don't know, the first album that I think of, and the first, like if I picture Michael Jackson, I instantly have a picture of him in the jacket with the bow tie, with the curl. That's the Michael that comes to mind for me.
Gotcha.
So there you go, guys. Not that that matters. But with that being said, I do like this song, but I feel like it's a forgotten hit.
I think so. It was sampled for the Superman Lovers Starlight.
I have no idea what those words mean.
Have you never heard the song Starlight by the Superman Lovers?
No, I've never heard of the Superman Lovers.
And it has a really cool video.
Not a thing. I wasn't sure you were speaking English at first, Tim.
Let me tell you, Joy, when we wrap this call,
I knew that was
we're going
coming.
to have a viewing session. I'm surprised that you haven't seen it.
It doesn't ring a bell like at all. Maybe it's one of those things when you start showing it, it will alarms will go up. But so far, I have nothing.
Yeah, it was a early 2000s hit.
Really?
Yeah.
I was thinking we were talking
thing.
like 70s. Oh my gosh. This is me, Rebecca Black Friday. By the way, Tim did listen to Rebecca Black Friday, everybody.
I did indeed.
You need to give them a follow-up at the end of the episode, Tim, a little blib on what you thought about Friday.
Okay.
All right. What's the next song?
Okay. The next one I have is from the Electric Light Orchestra. Pray silence, please. And this is the song Mr. Blue Sky.
I knew this was going to be on here. I was just listening. These ELO came up a few times on my clapping playlist that I didn't mean to come up with the other day. I mean, have you ever seen them live?
No, I haven't. I mean, the thing is about ELO is that they were a 70s, maybe early 80s sort of act. Jeff Lynne.
I don't know if they're still performing, are they?
Well, what happened is they sort of disappeared into obscurity, and then somehow they were transcended into this legendary act that everyone was reminded of how great they were. And then before you know it, ELO are playing at Wembley Stadium. And it's now Jeff Lynne's ELO, because I think someone probably owns the name to it that's not him or something.
It's weird that you say that, because it is one of those bands that for some reason they just kind of like...
Yeah, it was a 70s, 80s act that were popular and great. Then all of a sudden, everyone just like woke up and went, whoa, they were the best band in the world.
Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood are probably like, and you take that, Tim. We were the best band in the world. Well, and I feel like they're one of those bands, though, that have like a cult following because they're like supposed to be like multiple instrumentalists, like, right? Don't they play like a bunch of instruments? And if you go see them live, I'm hoping they do a light show. Could be wrong,
Well, yeah,
but
they do a light show, but famously they had orchestral instruments on their
that
tracks. Now,
too.
that
Yeah.
is something that the Beatles started doing years ago, and many artists through the years have
Hmm.
had orchestras and orchestral music, but it was very much woven into the fabric of the Electric Light Orchestra. Like Evil Woman, for example, has got all of
Yeah.
orchestra stuff in it, and even like Mr. Blue Sky too. I mean, that's very orchestral in places. But yeah, I don't know quite how that was elevated back to being the most legendary band in the world, but it seems to be that's the case.
I don't know. I mean, I think for me, their biggest hit, and I feel like the biggest hit in America is Don't Bring Me Down.
Yeah.
By far. I don't know. And it had kind of like almost like a disco influence to it, I would
Hmm.
say. But I mean, you've got like what, Last Train to London. Trying to think of ELO songs. And you're right, like I don't know where it came from. Like it feels like in there's been a resurgence now where they're just like this progressive, really intense, they did everything uniquely kind of thing. And I have to be honest, I don't really know that much about them besides like their songs were good.
Yeah. Now, one thing about Mr. Blue Sky, it has a classic example of
Hmm.
a guitar sound on it. Now, this is how this was described in the 60s, and it's not cool to call it this now, of course, but it's what's known in the trade and even in guitar circles now as a woman tone. And what that
Okay.
is you have a Les Paul guitar, you have it on the neck pickup, and you wind the tone all the way off. Famously used by like Eric Clapton, famously used the woman tone. And this has got the same guitar sound on it. And that is a guitar sound that sort of gone through rock history. Now, as I
Hmm.
said, probably not the best description for that in 2024, but certainly that's how traditionally that was described.
Interesting. I mean, I would have never thought that, but okay. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of one of those people. I do know they got like weren't they introduced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at one point? Like, I feel like they've gotten their accolades now. They're pretty high up there.
Well, as you know, everyone decided they were the greatest band in the world.
We have no idea where that came from, but good on you, ELO. And if you're listening, we'll have you on the episode next week.
Yeah, Jeff Lynne, pop in. If you're free on a Wednesday night, we'll see what we can do.
Didn't their drummer leave and go play with Black Sabbath at one point or something?
Very possibly. I mean, rock and roll is intertwined, and people build up
It's
the
a
fact
small
these
world.
yeah these genres are very different and things are very different, but really the music industry, it doesn't really matter. People are playing with everyone.
I distinctly remember probably a pop-up music video factor or something. At some point in time, I remember hearing something about their drummer left and he went to play with Black Sabbath, and it was kind of random. There
Yeah,
you go, everybody.
I mean, a gig's a gig at the end of the day.
I mean, he knows how to keep time on a bass drum. He can hit a hi-hat, I guess. Right, Tim? I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, what more do you need?
All right, move along. Where poor Ringo's like, let me tell you, you guys talked about me not getting named after, and drummers have hard work to do. And me saying this is the world's worst drummer. Anyway, what's the next song, Tim?
Okay, so this is a track that you're very familiar with. This
Okay.
is sort of harks back to the beginning of the episode, in fact, and it contains Ringo. And this
Okay.
is from the album Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band from 1967. This is the Beatles and Lucy in the Sky
Hi.
with Diamonds.
Whenever we first got, like, I think it was like an Xbox 360, which I know Tim's not in gaming, but he knows the basics of words and stuff when it comes around it. So think like, I don't know, when did the Xbox 360? Early 2000s, whatever. Don't come for me, internet. My first gamer tag, which is like my username, was Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Would you look
There's
at
the
that?
facts about me. And I had to explain to three different people playing games what that was a reference to because I don't know. Apparently, nobody else but me was listening to the Beatles. Looking back now, they probably just thought I was trying to speak about drugs. I wasn't, I realized that that might have been why they were asking, but at the time, I didn't think about that. Like, they're probably like, oh, what's with the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds? And I was like, I just really like the Beatles. And now I'm like, oh, wait a second. There might have been an agenda there.
I mean, I will tell you, I'm not a fan of video games. I do not have any video games on my computer. I'm not playing on the last video game I played. I couldn't even tell you. It's just something that doesn't appeal to me at all.
I mean, I feel like for you that makes, I mean, I'm not big in it either. I do play games, but the games that I play are much more kind of like easygoing games. Does that make sense, Tim?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not near as aggressive. Like you were talking about Hannah going on raids, Charlie going on raids. I'm not playing any of that. No, I'm playing more like Sims and building stuff and things like that. But
Yeah,
anyway, I did play a lot of Xbox back in the day, and I was really into Call of Duty, which is probably really random for anybody who knows me, but I was. And now I realize that my gamer tag may have had hidden into Windows.
yeah. I
You
mean,
live and you learn.
as you know, I'm super into this classic 80s WWF wrestling. There have been many, many games through the years. Even up now, you can get
Yeah.
the most up-to-date ones with classic characters in it, and I've no interest in that. It's
Huh?
just, it's video gaming is not for me.
Well, there we go, guys. Tim will never be. That's just not Tim. It's because he's 107, but that's not related.
Well, there you go.
All right. How much time do we got? Two songs, Tim? I don't know when we
One song,
started.
maybe two.
One, and then tell them your theory on Rebecca Black. There you
Okay.
go.
All right. So
do
we'll,
that.
we'll close out my songs with this one. This is a Joy favorite from the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album, Benny and the Jets.
Benny and the Jets. So what I think of when I think of this song is there was some movie, and I've yet to find it, where they're in a bar. It's a girl and a guy, and they're yelling about what the actual lyrics are to each other. What he thought it said, I don't know, electric boobs instead of like, and then like a mohair suit. You know what I mean? Where they're going through the different, they're trying to debate what it is, and they end up getting wasted. And then I don't remember what happens at the end, but somehow that when they get in the car, what's the first song that starts playing? Benny and the Jets. So then they start yelling at each other again. And for some reason, I can never get that movie out of my. I have no idea who's in it. I have no idea what the rest of the movie is, Tim. But that part specific, isn't it weird how that works though? When you have like that very distinct memory, and I'm sure I could Google it later and figure it out. But that is like the thing that always comes to mind when I think of Benny and the Jets.
Hmm.
Very random, I realize. I mean, everybody knows I love Elton John, so
Well, yeah. I mean, I've seen him perform this when I saw him at Wembley Stadium, and of
I
course,
have two now.
yeah, and of course, it was featured in the film Rocket Man, and one of the promos for Rocket Man starts with "dun dun," and they kind of slowed the intro down, and it was and the lights were flashing. It was really cool.
So that's what he opened with when I saw him, what, 2, 3 years ago? And that's how he starts the concert. The lights start flashing here. Duh, duh. That's how he opened the whole show. And then it went straight into Benny and the Jets, which of course makes everybody go like, you know what I mean, mental, because everybody loves Benny and the Jets. So
Yeah.
it's a really cool, but it's funny you say that because he slowed it down and you just hear the keys and that's how he opens the show. And then the lights start flashing and and then it went into the song. So there you go, guys. And of course, everybody's dancing and screaming and singing Benny and the Jets at each other. What I find funny was I was watching something recently, Tim, and somebody went to an Elton John concert. And one of the things that you see when you go to an Elton John's concert is everybody wearing really fun, flamboyant costumes, like they would. And like I saw a thing where this girl shared a thing, and she was like, she said she was surprised by everybody wearing all those outfits. And I guess it was she was younger. And so in her mind, when she thinks of Elton John, she more thinks of just his music on the radio. But whereas we're a little bit older and we think of his flamboyant personality and how he used to dress. I always said he used to dress that way because, you know, he wasn't a dancer.
Yeah.
But in her mind, she's removed from that. And now it's more about the actual songs that she just hears on the radio. So she was surprised to see everybody showing up in rhinestones and big glasses and feathers. And I'm like, it was an interesting thing to think about. Like his music still transcends, but like people don't know as much about him personally.
Absolutely.
Of course, the Rocket Man movie may have helped a little bit with that.
Sure.
But anyway, that was cool. All right, Tim. So for those who don't know, a few weeks ago, I was like, it's Friday, Friday. And Tim had no idea what I was doing, and it was really awkward. So I challenged him to do his favorite thing, which is to listen to modern day things and stuff, to listen to Rebecca Black's Friday. And Tim, what did you think?
Well, firstly, it's not that modern. It's 13 years old.
Well, modern by our standard. We talk
Modern
about
by our
songs from the
standards,
1800s.
I thought it was a fine pop hit. I didn't offend me in any way, but reading about the backlash about it, it was like, really?
So what's so interesting about this song is, so Rebecca Black was like, I don't know, 13, 14. She was a young girl. Her parents paid money to this record company to write her a song and put her out a hit. And while it could pass for pop music, it's just a little bit subpar, right, Tim? Like even the bar for regular pop is a little bit above the quality that they gave her. But they did it with her and they recorded this video and they kind of gave her and her parents like false hope this was going to be a big hit. And basically her parents got scammed by this record company. And it went out on YouTube and it instantly went viral with people kind of making fun of it, doing reaction videos, things of that nature. And so the poor girl's life is basically ruined thanks to these record company people who took advantage of a young girl. And so what's cool though is I had mentioned to Tim, and Tim didn't know this in the what is it, TGI Friday? Is that what it's called? What's the Katy Perry song called? Thanks God.
Last Friday
I don't know.
night.
Last Friday night. Yes, that's what it is. Everything but what I said. Last Friday night, Rebecca Black makes a cameo. She's playing, I think, Wii or something like that, where it's like you know what I mean, more of like a VR type situation or alternate reality. And she's doing the dancing game in the video, which was I'm sure they paid to get their cameo with Rebecca Black and Katy Perry and, you know, was advertising the video game. But Katie said it was a nod to her because it's a song about Friday. She had wrote a song about Friday and just like supporting a young artist.
Well, there we go.
Which I loved. I thought it was super cute. And it wasn't, and some people were like, oh, she's showing her what a real Friday song should sound like. And she come out like very openly against that. She was like, no, I wanted her to experience something in the music business because obviously she wants to get into the business music, the music business. And in Glee. Glee did a version of Last Friday Night on one of their episodes, like to help her, and the money all went towards her.
Well, there we go. As I said, this is something that completely passed me by.
A whole segment of history that Tim has no clue. But it just blew my mind. Once again, Tim, you don't know what people don't know.
There we are. I mean, I know about David Hasselhoff's music career, and I have no idea about this. I don't know what that says about me.
It says a lot of things, but we won't get into it. All right, what are you going to leave the people with?
Three things. One, listen to David Hasselhoff's music. Well, maybe they might not be into that. Two, if you're in the United States, please make sure you are registered to vote.
That part.
Yeah, and also just be kind to everyone that you meet.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.